So, Walter Albert Winn, he was Private C53082, Stormont in Dundas and Glengarry Highlanders, Royal Canadian Infantry Corps, and he was 3rd Division. Walter Albert Winn was born on the 5th of September 1921 in Haliburton, Ontario, which is 99 kilometers north of Peterborough. His mother was Celia Winn, and his father is listed as unknown in his military records. His family and himself were a part of the Salvation Army faith. He never completed high school, and again, I later found out he only had 1 year of high school, so he basically finished grade 9, and then he ended up working at as an apprentice at a motor, just like auto shop, I guess. So although he was mentioned to be an only child and have no brothers or sisters or step siblings or anything, I did find evidence that in local newspapers he did have a brother who was called Corporal Chuck Winn. Chuck came home on furlough when his mother found out that Walter died. According to medical records, Winn had never received his vaccinations. He was 5'8.5", which compared to some of the other soldiers I've heard about, that's pretty tall. 146 pounds, and he had hazel eyes with light brown hair. He enlisted as a single man and took on the calling of labor with the Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry Highlanders on June 26, 1940. He was stationed in Kingston for his training, so he enlisted in Peterborough and then they took him to Kingston for training. He went AWOL 3 times. I never really found out why. Most of the times he went AWOL, he was missing for only like 2 days at the most, sometimes even just a few hours. Like, he didn't show up to parade, showed up parade late kind of thing. And again, no information was really provided about where he was. And for that, he forfeited about 28 days of pay total. So, before he left to Debert, Nova Scotia, where he continued his training before he went to England, he was granted furlough, which is like a military leave, around December 27th, 1940, so right after Christmas, which to me is odd because I think, before Christmas, but... And on January 18th, 1941, he was posted to the No. 1 Company in Debert. On May 16th, he was granted 6 leave, and then he was admitted into the Debert Military Hospital from May 22nd to June 4th with appendicitis. On the 21st of July, Winn was SOS, or struck off strength, from the Highlanders in Halifax, Nova Scotia. He was taken on strength with the Overseas Canadian Army on July 22nd and disembarked in Avonmouth, England on July 31st, 1941. It was there that he received training with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Canadian Depot Infantry Recruitment Unit and switched back and forth between his regiment and training. So, he did a lot of training, and he was also part of the 2nd Tech Wing briefly. He was training, he actually failed a few of his tests, but he was training to be like a truck driver and motorcyclist and stuff like that. And during his training, he took mechanic and motorcycle courses. Again, during his training, Winn went AWOL and forfeited 1 day's pay. On December 24th, 1942, Winn struck a civilian while driving a military transport vehicle. The GOC, which is the General Officer Commanding of the 3rd Canadian Division, quoted to the court that, although a motorist is often seen at fault and some negligence may have been involved, the accident was also part in fault by the behavior of the civilian. Because, I forget who said it, I think it was either Winn or one of his witnesses said that he was driving and the woman just all of a sudden stepped out without looking. After this, Winn disembarked at a French port on June 6, 1944, which we know is D-Day, but he didn't take place. Yes, it said disembarked at a French port, and he continued on to fight in the Operation Goodwood Atlantic, which we covered a lot today. Like, that's the Varia Ridge, that was Point 67. There's a few more villages I'll go on and talk about that you may have seen signs for, we may have driven through, like Vaucelles. We also drove through that. So I have sort of, based on an example I saw, what was going on when he died. So Montgomery, who was a British commander at the time, hashed out a plan that involved the Orne bridgehead, so like that river we talked about, and it employed all 3 British armoured divisions. The Canadians' role was support the British and capture Colombelles, Faubourg de Vaucelles, and the village of Guiberville. The Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry Highlanders were a part of the 9th Brigade. On 18th of July, 1944, the starting date, or the D-Day for this operation, The Highlanders left Annecy and arrived in Benouville. By 0800 hours, they were almost across the Orne River when the weather was sunny and mild. They are met with the occasional enemy machine gun fire and craters from their own bombers. Once they were across, the forward companies were held up by enemies who were in the chateau near Colombelles. So the right flank of the 8th Brigade, which was the only one I can remember, is the Régiment de Chaudière. I do have some of the acronyms for the different regiments in here, but I don't have them memorized, so I won't read them. I'll just say the brigades. And so the right flank of the 8th Brigade were also unable to move beyond the chateau near Colombelles. The 9th Brigade, which the Southern Dundas were a part of, got strung out in one long column, which was described as a lovely target should Jerry decide to attack by the glens. So that's an actual quote that I found in this textbook, and then later on confirmed that it was indeed in the war diaries for my regiment. Once the Chaudière secured the chateau, the 9th Brigade carried on into Vaucelles. The 7th Brigade was ordered to Vaucelles and met with little enemy resistance. They then moved on to Cormelles, which had been said to be clear to the enemy, but it wasn't. It turns out that report was misinformed. Whoever reported it was wrong. They got their the Germans' movements wrong, so when they showed up, Germans were there, and it took the Royal Winnipeg Rifles and the Canadian Scottish till nightfall to clear the town. On July 18th, Simons, Canadian Lieutenant General, also ordered the 4th Brigade to capture the town of Louvigny on the west bank of the Orne. The Royal Regiment of Canada, which I found out is not the Royal Canadian Regiment, totally different things, was assigned this task, and it entered its first battle since Blue Beach near Dieppe in August 1942. So their task was difficult, and they were met with heavy casualties. The 4th Brigade ended up losing their commander, Brigadier Sherwood Lett. After this, there was a decision to withdraw the 4th Brigade into reserve. So, on July 19th, which is the day before my soldier died, the 11th British Armoured Division spent the morning reorganizing after losing 126 tanks, which is a whole lot of tanks. It basically allowed the Germans to regroup, and they deployed the 1st SS Panzer for a rapid counterattack. The 5th Canadian Brigade, which one of the famous ones are the Régiment de Maisonneuve, were set to capture Fleury-sur-Orne, Point 67, where we were today, and the village of Yves, which we passed. After losing 65 more tanks and the acquisition of Bras and Hubert-Folie, which we also passed, the 11th Armoured Division were relieved by the 3rd Canadian Division by noon on the 20th. Simons ordered the 6th Brigade, with the help of the Essex Scottish, to attack the Verrières Ridge, which that was sort of that battle we were talking about that happened on the ridge there. The 7th Armoured Division withdrew and left this battle to the Canadians. The 6th Brigade moved out on H hour at 1500 hours with the help of strong artillery and 24 Typhoon fighter bombers. The last phase of Operation Atlantic was very costly. More than half of the 2nd Division's 1,149 casualties happened on the last day. The ridge was still in enemy hands, and the 2nd Division lacked the experience to fight this battle. Although, a close examination of the battle suggests that not even the most seasoned troops would have fared much better. And that's a direct quote out of the textbook I mentioned, and that's sort of what we've been talking about, narratives. That was their opinion of it, and in the end, Bethold and Kopp, so the writers, said that Goodwood had been a disappointment to the Allies, but the Germans had been forced to use virtually all of their available sources to stem the attack. And again, that's just their narrative, right? We talked a bit about that today with the Verrières Ridge, the narrative on that. There is little information on what actually happened to Winn, other than he died of wounds on the 20th of July 1944. Most files will tell you how your soldier died. Mine, all I know is that all of a sudden they wrote, struck enough strength, killed in action, July 20th, 1944, and that's all they had in his file. So what I thought based on the war diary, on the 18th of July, according to the SDG Highlanders, 10 ORs, which means other ranks, so anyone not an officer, an enlisted man, a few of them died. A few again, casualties, and I think Winn might have been one of them. And he died of his wounds 2 days later. Because the fact, like, as I was reading in the example that's posted online, it mentioned the person was killed by a concussion from a shell fire. So I feel like if it was the Germans who killed my soldier, they would have been right away, quick say, killed by enemy fire, but instead they just had died of wounds. So I'm assuming it's probably because of friendly fire. So, Walter Albert Winn, he's buried Bretteville-sur-Laize, Canadian War Cemetery in Calvados, France. And in total, he qualified for and received the 1939 45 Star, the France-Germany Star, the Defense Medal, the War Medal, 1939 45, and the Canadian Volunteer Service Medal. Now, from the sound of it, as someone was saying, the difference between someone who signed up for the war and like someone who's reg force before the war. So I think that's why he got the Volunteer Service Medal. And when he died, the only thing he had in his possession was a leather wallet with snapshots, which I'm assuming were of his mother and maybe friends back home, because he was single, didn't even have a girlfriend. And there was a metal trinket found on his person. But other than that, again, he had nothing. He was, he was 22 when he died. He didn't have a wife, didn't have kids, didn't have his own house or anything he could leave to anyone other than the $50 for his mom. And he received a total of $786.98 from the military before his death. And he died at the age of 22, or 22, sorry, not 82. I'll show you all a photo of him. It's really quite young. When I saw it, I thought right away, I mean, this could have been a photo when he first joined, which was like 19. But I thought, he looked really young, looks kind of goofy, like he would have a good time. So I found that on online in an archives. So not only do I want to remember Walter, though, I want to remember all his fellow comrades who have died and we have seen in the other cemeteries. Like yesterday I saw in a cemetery a Highlander who died at 20 years old, I think, and he was the 18th, 2 days before Winn died. So that to me was very personal. Now the poem, I wouldn't say it's a World War I poem, but I'm a huge John McCrae. I love his poem, and I found a part that sort of suits how I feel about Winn, or how I feel that Winn would feel. So it's quoted from John McCrae. "We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, fell dawn, saw sunset glow. Loved and were loved, and now we lie. Walter, you were and are loved. You are my brother, and I will remember you. We will remember you."